Welcome to the Lovecars on the Grid podcast, your global motorsport roundup with me, Tiff Needell, and Paul Woodman.
Welcome to Lovecars on the Grid, your global motorsport roundup. This is episode 39, where there's only one race to look back on over the weekend. It was, of course, the Race of Remembrance Anglesey, a 12-hour endurance race where yours truly got a fourth place victory.
Not a podium. Move on.
Okay,
because
victories in fourth
funny
place.
enough, Race of Remembrance is quite an apt title. We shouldn't steal the title from such an important charity, but the Race of Remembrance is going to be, last weekend's Abu Dhabi Grand Prix.
Which is what we're here to talk about. Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, of course, which ended in a little bit of controversy.
A little bit. I think, first of all, though, everybody thinks we're so biased. Let's congratulate Max Verstappen on winning the World Championship, the first Dutch driver. We're always accused of bias here. He won more Grand Prix than Lewis. It was a fantastic year where both drivers really deserved to be World Champion, no doubt about it. Of course, I will say maybe, as we look on later, it should have been 9 wins each if certain rules had been adhered to. But no, fantastic driver, Max. But again, we get, of course, a fanboy, British bias. I just happen to prefer the way Lewis races. I still don't like Max's very aggressive style. He's a mercurial talent. We keep on saying this, he's going to win more world championships. So huge congratulations to him. He's a fantastic driver, but I just happen to support Lewis. Partly because I'm British. I think, that's not unnatural. If you watch the Olympics as a British runner against a Dutch runner and you don't know who they are, you'll probably favour the British guy. The government spends millions of pounds sponsoring our athletes to fly the flag. So, perhaps I'm slightly biased that way, but still I look at the rules and regulations. I see racing. I've been watching Formula One now closely since I think about 1958.
It's important to say, not just watching. You've actually raced.
Raced in Formula. We have raced in Formula One. I've raced in World Sports. I've raced everything all over the world. So I've done a lot of racing. But I can still remember in 1958, I was upset because Stirling Moss didn't win it. He was the moral winner of the 1958. Mike Hawthorne sneaked it by 1 point. So my memories of Formula One titles and close things, and every year, there's no point in looking back now, what Silverstone happened now, what if Brazil, the rule had been changed, every supporter can look back over lost points and things that yes, and yes, but at the end of the day, we get what you get. Again, with the Lewis Hamilton bias, I thought Felipe Massa should have won in 2008. I think he deserved to be champion that year. He got robbed by a pace car again when Piquet deliberately crashed into Singapore, ruined that race weekend for Ferrari. And so, I was supporting Massa on that day and not the Brit, Lewis Hamilton.
Well,
so,
let's have a look at this. And irrespective of whether you're a Max or a Lewis supporter, I think everybody will agree it's undeniable that they were just streets ahead of anybody else in the field all season. 2 unbelievable drivers. And as you said, Tiff, I agree, they both deserve to win the championship, but only...
Well, they won all the Grand Prix. Nobody else won more than one. What the other winners were Sergio in Azerbaijan, Ocon in Hungary, Bottas in Turkey, and Ricciardo in Italy. But they all were fortuitous winners, really. The scene just helped them win. So it was just a dominating season. And that's what I loved about the fact that it came to this last round, equal on everything, apart from wins, which, of course, Max was 1 ahead at that stage. And so I just wanted to be this ultimate showdown. And that's what it was, And perhaps it's a shame that Mercedes had the better car this weekend. But, that's the way. After qualifying, hold on a minute, these Red Bulls are pretty quick, Well,
I disagree. Let's go to qualifying now.
It was going to be such a great Grand Prix with a winner takes all.
It was winner takes all. So qualifying. And it looked like that, as you just said, looked like Red Bull had the edge, looked like they had the faster car. Of course, he stuck on pole. But there's a massive thing that most people seem to overlook. He was on soft tyres, and the soft tyre is better around there. So clearly, he was going to be a little bit quicker than Lewis.
For the pole position, they were both on soft tyres for the pole, the actual pole decider. But yet in the race, we thought that, the Red Bull would go ahead and then the tyres would go off. And of course, we've got the first controversy, which of course we'll be reminded of all the comments below. Yeah, but he should have given the place up. I think Brundle was out of order. He was very, very strong about giving up the place. I think
he pushed him off the track. I mean, look, what goes around comes around. Look at Brazil, and there's no penalty there whatsoever. What goes around comes around, and this all goes back to the FIA and back to how they police this whole season.
Just go one more back on that. I'll just go back to this last week. Get a slightly thing about Max, not only is the way he attacks, very, making people move out of the way aggressively, the way he talks sometimes, because after Saudi, he complained, why was I penalised when I wasn't in Brazil? So he tried to use the fact that he wasn't penalised in Brazil as justification. Why was I penalised? I mean, he must have read the press to realise that 90% of people thought he should have been penalised in Brazil. Yet he still had the arrogance to say, why did you penalise me then when I wasn't in Brazil? That's just sort of little things about Max that still niggle someone like me. But anyway.
So should Lewis have given the place back? So Max went down the inside.
No, because Lewis still tried to turn in because Max hadn't got his gearbox ahead of Lewis's nose. He was still there. And Lewis did try to turn in, but Max went right to the edge of the road. As Brundle says, he didn't go off road. Okay. So Lewis was then forced off the track. Shouldn't have conceded the place because Max hadn't completed the maneuver. But I think the big question was whether he should have backed up more. I think that's what riled a lot of people. It didn't appear that he gave up. I mean, I don't know how far back they take what the gap was. If they took it to the sort of straight before the braking zone, then I think Lewis did he reinstated that gap. But he certainly didn't reinstate, when Max was half alongside. So that was a grey area. But actually, I almost wish he had given the place back. Because I think then that tyre equation, because when Lewis was coming strong on the yellow, the medium tyres, and Max was struggling on the reds, I think we would have had a fantastic battle and probably seen Lewis overtake Max in the race before Max, gave up and went to get the red tyres off. So I actually wish he'd given the place back because I think that could have been a great battle.
But you didn't. Nobody knew at that stage, including Red Bull or Mercedes, who had the quicker car. Really,
no, not really. No.
But and actually, this is one of my bone of contentions about the whole thing about the Mercedes strategists, because I think they messed it up. I think they gambled on having the quicker car, and luckily they did have the quicker car. But Max came in on the soft tyres. Clearly, the soft degrade more than the medium. He came in and Mercedes just wanted to cover it. They didn't want to take any chance at all. Lewis came in on the next lap, where reality is he could have easily done another.
Yeah, stayed out a few more. Yeah, no.
And he was on the pace as well, very much.
Covering is the thing, But I think the Lewis laps, the most impressive part of when Max stopped again for another set of whites, because hards, because he wasn't catching. And then we had the thought that, then Max started catching, nearly a second a lap. But then Lewis put in a series of laps on 20 lap old or whatever it was, used hards that were quicker than Verstappen on his much, much newer. And I thought that was a magical part of the race when Lewis just drove the most amazing laps to pull out a healthy lead. Despite the Perez.
Oh, amazing.
That was fine. I'm not complaining about that.
Of course
I thought
not.
Sergio did an amazing job. Nothing dirty, just tactically drove. So then Lewis, they lost 5 of his 8-second lead, and Max was then looming with fresher tyres. But then again, Lewis was pulling away. They interviewed him on the pit wall, when Red Bull, and they all said, no, we've lost this. The Mercedes is a faster car today, and unless a miracle happens, and there's a miracle. What's the name? Masi miracle, Masi. We'll get on to that later. It was over. Max. It was going to be 9 wins each. Lewis was going to be the champion, and yeah.
I know, but so on the Checo thing, I agree, and I think Lewis is just a little bit frustrated there, saying he was driving dangerously. Checo wasn't driving dangerously. That's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Exactly.
And Lewis was being super safe. Lewis was being super safe. He didn't, That's been the problem with a lot of the last 6 races. Lewis couldn't be as aggressive as Max was because he was behind on the points. So it was always the problem.
Which is massive kudos to Lewis. Now and then Checo, what he did, he was the perfect team member. Whereas Bottas, on the other hand, what?
I was going through results this morning, thinking, what sixth, what a disappointment. He just has these weekends. That's always been his problem. He doesn't seem to come with the pace, if he'd been up there.
We're going to come on to F2 at the end.
Max couldn't have stopped for that second set of hards if Bottas had been within 20 seconds of him. So
we're going to come on to F2 after, but for me, I'll be giving Oscar Piastri Bottas's Alpha drive, not but why? He hasn't done anything at Mercedes with a few fast pole positions and a few wins, fortuitous wins perhaps. Give it to somebody else 5 years.
He can be very quick, I know. Well, this is what always frustrates me about Formula One. I love Kimi Räikkönen. I love Kimi, but he's a great character. But I do think there needs to be more movement to give more young drivers. We've got Zhao in now. That's a pair of Alfa. We've got Zhao and Valtteri. I can't see anything exciting for Alfa Romeo for the next season. Sorry, Alfa, but
you say Kimi, and I understand Kimi, I understand Seb, I understand Alonso, because they bring a massive fan base. They bring a huge amount to a team. Yeah. But Bottas doesn't. He doesn't bring that. What these older boys do. So make way for one of the young guys.
Anyway, let's move on.
Yes, so let's move on.
I'm in the middle of a Grand Prix now. You just Formula 2.
You just mentioned about on the pit wall, Christian Horner saying, we need a miracle. We need a miracle. Yeah. Now, all this time, all throughout the race, of course, with the incident earlier in the race, Horner and Toto, they are both on the radio. All their teams are both on the radio, which is driving us all mad. Absolutely driving us mad. To race control.
They shouldn't transmit it. It's all that's Netflix, Liberty, the drama. They want drama. They got drama, but they've just shot themselves in the foot. But
I think they're loving.
And Massi's tone. Massi always has a tone, an arrogant tone. Don't worry, Dove. I know what I'm doing. Don't worry, everybody. Leave me alone. I know what I'm doing. Oh,
he hasn't got a clue.
Even right at the end, when Horner was on the blower saying, you got to let them pass, don't interrupt me. I know what I'm doing. I've got a safety car to sort out. Leave me alone. His manner and his voice.
I didn't mind that. I know what you mean with his voice. I didn't mind that so much, but it just, you're right. But these two now, Toto and Christian, they are like big celebrities. They get more airtime than the drivers, clearly, because their drivers are out there in the car and they know.
Anyway, getting on to the end of the race.
We have to.
So everybody says, Mercedes could have changed the strategy. Mercedes could have turned for tires as well, but they couldn't. That's not the way anyone would run the strategy. Someone said if it happened 5 laps earlier, Mercedes would have known that the let pass rule would have been instigated. But when he looked at only 4 laps to go, I think Mercedes, doing the tactics, would have realised that there weren't enough laps to clear the car and do the safety car overtake of the back markers as per the rule. And so they were confident that the safety car would run to the end of the race.
As it would have done in every other race of the season.
But then they announced it. Then he announced it. He actually announced it. He said there will be no overtaking. So we're all thinking, okay. But then, of course, you can imagine Liberty and everybody saying, we've got to let them race. We're in racing. We can't have this. And funny enough, it reminded me that Bernie had this ridiculous rule. When we brought in safety cars, pace cars, like for America, they hated this, you can't have people coming across the finish line behind a pace car. Because in America, of course, they have this green flag, green, white checker, where they keep on rerunning it, until you've got a race to the flag, 3 extra laps. But Bernie, do you remember introduced that thing where the safety car line ended before the last corner? A few people used to overtake into the last corner before starting the lap with a safety. It was a weird rule that some people took advantage of, because he just thought that people then go through the line and then accelerate past the fin. That was the Bernie image. So he couldn't have people crawling across past a checkered flag. And I think Masi just got this pressure, I think, to let them race, which has been going all year, it's let them race theory. But this isn't a sort of banger race at Ipswich Stadium. Not the banger race at Ipswich Stadium isn't fantastic, boys out there. This is a Grand Prix. Grand Prix is a run over an hour and a half, 2 hours, and it's strategy and it's how you drive. And all of a sudden he turned it into a 1-lap race, knowing that one car was with his arm behind his back because he had knackered old tyres and the other had fresh red tyres. Masi knew that. Yeah, he still did. Let's have a 1-lap race. If he'd stopped with a red flag, we'd all put on new tyres and gone to the grid.
Great.
That would have been a good decision if you had to make a decision. But I think that still the solicitors might have a say in this. I don't know how much the FIA could. Because what I didn't know until I found out a bit later in the night, was all the Twitter coming flying in. The Masi had this override rule. Even though the rules said you must let all lap cars past, and then the pace car goes in once the lap cars have caught up the back of the train, which would have taken it, way into the end of the race. He has some override thing where he can press the pace car in whenever he feels like it's safe to do so. But then it was a completely single-person decision, overriding the rule book.
To determine a championship that was just level on points, go one lap, 1 point. It's like you're a football fan. I mean, I know Southampton got absolutely smashed this weekend.
All right. I mentioned that as well. And the Raiders, our American football team, got really thrashed.
Imagine World Cup final. You're 4-0 up with a minute to go, and then the referee stops the game and says, "Hang on a minute. The other team can change all 10 players, and we're going to keep playing. Next goal wins." I mean, it was just the most incredible decision ever. I think it's very. Whether it's Lewis or Max, and all this stuff now saying, "Oh, Mercedes got to drop it." No, they haven't.
No,
they haven't.
I know that was bizarre. What did Horner say? Desperate. Mercedes are desperate.
Can you imagine if the shoe?
You've just been robbed. You've been robbed. You've been robbed of a world title. And again, Max's attitude. I tweeted that. When he was informed that they won't let cars by, and Max, typical, expecting that. He thinks the FIA is against him, the world. So I hope he's changed his opinion now. Oh, I don't know. I mean, I bet Masi will be back next year, and I don't know what rules.
I really hope not. I think it's a hard job, and I empathise with him. But it
is a really hard job.
He made a decision for his. He made a decision off his own back. A personal decision, it seems, that has affected the World Championship, and it's wrong because he really just gave it to.
He just gave it to Max Verstappen
and Red Bull. And
the one thing I was thinking about the race, because these two have dominated the year so much. Yeah, it always fascinates me in Formula One how Lando Norris had a great week, qualified third within it was a tenth of a second. It's amazing how they can qualify so close. So why can't they race? It's fast. I don't see why Red Bull and Mercedes are able to race, because you can't change your cars after Parc Fermé. It does always surprise me. They can be so close in qualifying, and they're just miles back.
They qualified on the soft tyres, and Mercedes qualified.
No, they didn't. They're qualifying. You keep on tripping yourself up. And the actual Q3, don't get obsessed with the Q2. I know it's complicated. And they're all out on red tires, they're all light on fuel. It's almost as if the other teams can't make their cars work on full tanks. I suppose I've answered my own question, that it's Mercedes and Red Bull's cars can go quick when full of fuel, which the opposition don't appear to do, because they just disappear backwards.
And tell me this, so back to the overtaking rules. So Carlos Sainz was fighting for a podium, which he ended up getting, which is brilliant. Yeah. Good for him. But why didn't they allow him to be within that overtake? Why didn't they allow him to be with Max and Lewis? We all know that it was about Max and Lewis, but surely Michael Masi,
Carlos could have overtaken
Max. Could have had his first Grand Prix win. He could have, or he could have put pressure on Max to overtake Max, which he wouldn't have done. We all know that, but this is very hypothetical.
He broke all the logic of the rule book. He broke all the meanings of the rule book to try and create drama.
Do you know what he did for me, which is fundamentally wrong? Well, lots of things, but he did something on that last race that he would never have done in any other race of the season. Every other race of the season would have ended under a safety car, 100%. Now, he did something fundamentally wrong there, trying to make a spectacle, which is what it was. Netflix are going to be over the moon, because they don't even need to edit Drive to Survive. They've done it. It's just get the video for the last few races, and they've done it already.
As you said, Sainz, good podium for Sainz. Shame for Lando, because I think that, I haven't worked out exactly. I think Sainz coming third and Lando had that puncture and dropped to 7th. I think he lost 5th in the championship by the result of that race, because Lando was pipped by 4.5 points, I think, by Sainz at the end of the season. Good finish for Yuki Tsunoda. I've always liked him. And he finally had a clean race and finished 4th ahead of his teammate Gasly back the first time. Bottas, that disappointing 6th, Lando 7th. So It's just a shame. It's just left half the world, drunk. Good on you, Holland. I hope you've got good hangovers this morning.
I'm sure they have.
He's got such a fabulous fan base. It's great when you see it. It's a bit like Valentino Rossi, with the yellow grandstand. When you see the orange grandstand, I mean, it's great, that sort of support.
There wasn't much to cheer about until maybe the Checos overtake it. And then
they looked a bit glum.
They did look a bit glum. But I'll tell you one thing, because let's be fair, Lewis is, even most of the drivers who were put on the spot said who's going to win. Most said Max, actually. So which isn't about the better driver. That's normally about who's more likable in the paddock, which is my opinion. But I'll tell you one thing in terms of magnanimous in defeat. Lewis Hamilton and his father and his whole family. Yeah. I'm telling you this now, Max Verstappen fans. Max Verstappen would not have done that. He would have walked off in a half, as he did last week in Saudi Arabia. He would not have done that. And Lewis, credit to you, because that was obviously he's going to be watching this, Tiff. Credit to you and Max who watched it as well, of course. But that was that was.
I don't know how long the law courts can go. I think it's about 16 days if they're going to hear their appeal or something. It will go to the High Court, but the FIA clearly are not going to overrule themselves, so they'll fight this as well. And they don't want it. Either way, it's ended in a real farce, but which is such a shame for the most incredible Formula One season we've seen in a very, very, very long time. Just to recap, so Max Verstappen, champion. Lewis Hamilton, champion-elect so far anyway. Lewis Hamilton second. Valtteri Bottas, even though he did nothing, he had an amazing car. He beat Perez. At least he beat Perez in the points. And then the battle you just mentioned, Sainz pipped Norris. Both of them smashed both of them beat their co-drivers, Leclerc and Ricciardo, which is all you can ask for, really, as a team. And Mercedes won the constructors over Red Bull, Ferrari, McLaren. Ferrari took it over McLaren, and then Alpine took it over AlphaTauri. So, it was all pretty spaced out in the end. But what a season. Absolutely incredible. Can't wait for drivers. I was still shell-shocked. I turned the telly off and walked away. I thought, this is just a farce. A farce is a FIA farce. Here's a question. Headline. Here's a question for you before we leave, before we move on to Formula 2. Who was the last Formula 1 champion to be powered by Honda? Because, of course, Honda are back in the game now, very much so. You keep wanting to say Brawn because it was almost a Honda, but no, it was Ayrton Senna. Of course it must have been the last. 30 years ago. What year? 1991, 30 years ago. Wow. How about that? I know. So welcome back, Honda. Good to have you back as well. but it's their last year, though. Bizarrely. Yeah, that's true. Who knows what's going to happen next year? It's a bit like the Brawn would have been a Honda, and they would have won the world championship with the Honda car, and now they won the world title, but they're out of it next year. Who knows what's going to happen? Three good races in Formula 2. And Daruvalla won the first reverse grid. He was only 10th quickest in qualifying, but he had the pole and won that. Guan Yu Zhao, of course, we're going to be in Formula 1 next year, won the second reverse grid. But Oscar Piastri, pole for the main race. He won. He came right through the pack. He finished high up in the first sprint. He had a problem in the second sprint. I forget what happened. But he just looks class in the Formula 2 field, I would love to see him in a Formula 1 car. Our Danny boy in his last three races had a 6th, a 5th, and a 6th. So I think Piastri for sure we're going to see a Grand Prix race. It's because this is what Formula 2 is all about, Looking down through the field, I'm not sure who else we're ever going to see in Formula 1. Robert Schwartzman, the Russian kid, was second in the title in the end, but he's been around for 2 or 3. He's been there for almost too long. This is the problem. You need to be a rising star. I think Theo Pourchaire is a name to watch, the French boy, because he's coming up strong. He had a broken wrist in the middle of the year, so lost thing. And maybe Kiwi Liam Lawson might appear, but all we do know is we're going to get Zhao in. With all his who finished what's the Chinese currency called? Yen? I don't know. Yen? What's Japan? Anyway, a lot of Chinese currency, and again Liberty probably edging Alfa Romeo to let's go Chinese driver in. Come on. I want Oscar Piastri to take Bottas's drive. Bottas, lovely man, great. You've done that already. I know. You've done that. So you've done that, all right? And Prima won the championship easily. They cruised to victory in Formula 2. At least they're going back. They're dropping the 2 sprint races next year. So Formula 2 and Formula 3 back together on the same calendar. So we see them all racing every race, which is much, much better. Again, that was another I hate to point this on. Wasn't Masi the boss of Formula 3? I bet he had his hand in that regulation to try and make Formula 3 more exciting in Formula 2.
Should Masi stay or should Masi go next season?
I think he has to go, doesn't he? I don't think he will. I know what he's flipping FIA and the people like that. They always club together and protect their man. I just don't see. I think because of how is he going to be portrayed in the Netflix series? The villain or the saint that made racing exciting. And I think too many fans have got the knife in his back, and I think they'll just hate him making any decisions. But
whatever's decisions made now,
they don't care. You look at referees in football. We both love football, and there's an obvious something that we all see, and they said no, and they have the arrogance, don't they? Referees, no, I know, I am right.
You don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're doing.
They would have been shouting that, the Lewis fans, at him when he was making.
Well, they're shouting that all over Twitter, all over social media.
I know.
But it's
comments below.
It's just a horrible way to win a championship. Congratulations to Max Verstappen. What a phenomenal driver you are. I don't like your style of driving. I think you're too aggressive. You push people off out the way.
As a driver on a one lap.
But wow, you are just phenomenal as a driver. And many.
Let's look at George Russell. George Russell was raging about, obviously he's slightly biased towards Mercedes as he's going to be, but I think that's going to be great. I think Lewis won't retire now, as I predicted he'd win it. He might have been tempted to retire if he won the 8th title. So Lewis and George pairing up against Max should be something to look. As long as their cars come out reasonably equal with the completely new regulations, of course, that's something we don't know for next year.
I think that was George's first. I think he just was handed his new Mercedes iPhone, and that was his first tweet on it. so this week coming, there's a little bit going on. There's
don't worry, race fans. So if you were disappointed by last weekend, there's more racing this weekend because, wait for it, the electric dune buggies are coming to Britain. Oh yes,
not electric dune, but it's Extreme E, and it's a very sophisticated.
You can't. Don't get excited. You can't go and watch them. Of course, it's not a spectator sport. It's a completely made for TV, and they are they're in a Dorset tank training area.
Lovely. That'd be nice.
We'll talk about it next week.
There are some young drivers testing at Abu Dhabi as well this week.
We'll catch up with that next week.
And if you do get a chance, you want to see some amazing driving, check out our main channel, which is Lovecars on YouTube, because the 12-hour race of remembrance, the official race of remembrance for Mission Motorsport, an endurance race. Check it out.
And if you want to see Mr. Masi's next performance, it will be at Ipswich Stadium, hosting the banger racing. Good luck, Mr. Masi.
You heard it here first. Thanks for watching.
Cheers.
Cheers.